Good afternoon, everyone. It's 12 o'clock. Dorman Lunch and Learn. Today we have AC Tips and Tricks 2025. Now I know last month in May we had just done AC, but because of the warm weather this year and request, I want to go over some things that we couldn't cover in that hour Lunch and Learn. My name is G Truglia. I'll be your instructor for this webinar. And here's what we're going to cover. Heating system issues. Well, this is air conditioning. Well, it's really climate control, right? We'll talk about equipment, 134A, 1234YF, mixed bag of stuff, and tips and tricks. And we'll go over this way and show you our air conditioning machines here. We got a CPS 1234YF, that yellow one at the end. We got a Robinair 134A over there, a newer 134 Robinair, and a Snap-on 1234YF machine. So we do a lot of air conditioning, and I've been doing it for years. So I want to share some of my information with you to make your life easier. So here, let's talk about coolant first. Well, coolant is super important, right? And what type of coolant we put in, where do we find that information? RTFI, read the freaking info, right? Because there's so many different antifreezes and coolants. And what water we put in, it could be tap water, GM says. It could be distilled water. And it could be deionized water. Deionized, make a note, especially deionized if it's an electrified compressor. Now let's take a look at this screenshot here. So complaint of poor coolant or no AC at times. The screen shows bidirectional control AC compressor page that displays valuable PID list that shows disablement history. This vehicle had both a defective thermostat and extremely dirty throttle body, which contribute to the original complaint. So you're probably saying, what in the world does that have to do with AC? Well, do you realize even a power steering switch on many vehicles, when you go to parallel park, well, you say, who does that? Well, in New York City area, we have to do that, right? And when you cut that wheel hard, guess what? That's a load on the motor. That could help cut the compressor out if they think it's too far of an extra load, especially if it's a cycling compressor. But let's take a look here. So we got an AC request, right? You see that AC request? It says yes. That means on the dashboard, we press this button. Our temperature is 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, when you look at the AC relay, okay, you're going to know it's off. See the command? AC relay command, off. But hold it, you want AC, it's not on. Why? Well, when you look here, you can see it disengaged because you had coolant was too hot and an unstable idle. So, excuse me. So, yes, coolant can cause the AC system not to function, okay? So AC is not what it used to be. You need to check with your scan tool. You need to do a visual, you know, your brain, your eyes, your ears, your nose, your hands. Most important tools that you have. You got to look how many times you've seen something, smelled something, felt something, heard something. Yeah, so watch what happened here. Now you have AC request is yes. You have AC command is on. The readings are after the thermostat was replaced and the throttle body was clean. So always look at it. It's just not hooking that machine up and thinking you're going to get AC. In fact, if you watched our Lunch and Learn a couple of years ago on Tesla, well, you would have seen that sometimes when you want to do a coolant system on Tesla or you want to do an air condition, it's not as simple as a regular vehicle of hooking up. You're either going to have to go into their display or into their scan tool toolbox because there are certain valves that you would need to open or close or command before you can do a coolant system or an AC system service. So coolant replacement, about 15 to 20% remains in the system after it's been drained. You want to get some of that out, right? Fill the system with antifreeze coolant first and then top off with the correct water. What's that correct water again? Well, most of the time it's going to be Some tap water, depending where you're at. It could be distilled, there's a lot of times, or it could be deionized. You know what I suggest? I suggest you get premix. Premix won't be a problem. They'll have the right water in there if you go by the spec. Or use premix coolant, antifreeze for good results, 50-50 mixture. Be sure to use specific coolant, they just said that. OEs warn not to reuse any coolant drain from the system. So you don't want any acids or problems, right? Let's look at equipment here. First of all, your equipment. We roll these things outside. We're not always going to use a bay. So when you roll the machine outside, what happens? It's going to get banged around. The scale could be off. When's the last time you checked your scale? You got 33 pennies? I'm serious, 33 pennies? Because I can tell you, you probably lost your weight. Here on this Robinair machine, this is the weight. Goes on the bottom of the machine, and you got to make sure it calibrates correctly. In fact, this machine, when it was brand new, wouldn't calibrate correctly. It would put too much refrigerant into the system. The service guy came out from Robinair. He had to take it in because there was a defect in the scale. And the thing was only, I think, a week old when we tried it. So if you don't have that, take 33 pennies, put it in a plastic bag, as you see right here. Don't put it on there separately. It'll fall all over the place. God only knows you'll come out with less than 33 cents that you put on there, and maybe it gets stuck under the scale. So basically, 33 pennies equals 3 ounces. If your machine has 10 pounds, 3 ounces in it, you put the 33 pennies, you better have 10 pounds, 6 ounces, right? Only plus or minus an ounce. Many of the machines you could adjust with a screwdriver or an Allen key. The snap-on unit here, they tell you to call service, okay? That's just the way Snap-on wants to do their setup. So whatever machine you have, 134A, 1234YF, do you have a spare filter? We keep them upstairs. Do you have, for both of them, 2 different ones, and do you have vacuum pump oil? If your machine gets too far and maybe your tech didn't tell you, or you're a tech and you didn't tell your boss, hey, it says something about maybe an hour left and the vacuum pump oil needs to be changed. Well, it gave you a warning way before that. So you could have purchased that oil. And once that bottle is open, you use it once. It's hydroscopic, meaning you use it once, not all of it's going to go in the machine. What we do is open the drain, drain it out, pour some new to get some of the dirty oil out of it, close it up, fill it to the line or whatever the manufacturer suggests, and then run it to make sure you're at the right level. The rest of that oil could be used to lubricate seals, okay? Because it is not a PEG oil, you could utilize that oil on any seal type of replacement on the AC system. So it's a good idea to have that rather than getting caught with your pants down. Non-condensables, this is a biggie. Now, all 4 of these machines over here, they purge the air themselves. It goes on and you'll hear psh, 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 psh. Not all the time, depends how much air is in there. Depends on the temperature, right? But many of you still have older pieces of equipment. And that means you're going to have something like this, a gauge and a temperature thermometer basically, or one like this that you see manually purge. And what you're doing is you have to purge the air out of the system. Why there's a problem? The rise pressures, reduce cooling, can cause compressor to cycle rapidly, may result in evaporator freeze up, some cases damage the compressor. So air is not good. Air in 134A and 1234YF cause hydrofluoric acid. That means it's going to be eating away at the components in that AC system. How do we get rid of the non-condensables if a supply becomes contaminated? By opening the valve on a manual, like here, or purging this from here, okay? And it removes air until the gauge equals the ambient temperature. Very important, until it equals the ambient temperature. On automatic AC machines, that's what these are. You'll hear it make noise, okay? So very important. AC tanks, new and used. Well, do you know your tank has to be hydrostatically tested every 5 years? Oh, I know, you didn't do that, did you? Well, if you get a DMV type of guy or RMV or a EPA character come in, well, they look for this stuff, just like your acetylene and oxygen tanks. When they go back to, a person that fills them up or a company that fills them up, well, guess what? If that tank needs to be tested, hydrostatically tested, it goes out, gets tested. If it fails, they don't put it back into service. Now, on these type of tanks, new refrigerant, when you dispose of it, you have to make sure you put it in a vacuum and you basically suck it down and then punch a hole in the tab that's located up here on a 134A and write the word empty. Well, here, a 1234YF tank, you can see I punched a hole through it, and that way when it goes into a landfill, they know it's empty and the tank won't blow up, okay? So very, very important to do. Contaminated refrigerant. Now, if you're checking, we got to be real careful out there. There's refrigerant coming from third world countries that still have R12, R22, R13, all of the chlorine-based refrigerants. You should be checking the refrigerant with an identifier, like on these mandatory 1234YF machines. It is mandatory to snap on in the CPS. Those will definitely not allow you to move any further until it checks the refrigerant type. And that's very important. The older machines, we use a handheld version. And that handheld version will tell us if it is R12 or any other refrigerant like that, like 22. It will tell us if it's pure 134A. But the big thing it tells us, does it have air? Because what does air cause? Oh, it's a non-condensable. It can cause hydrofluoric acid to eat away from the inside out. To stick that expansion device, the valve, the block, it can ruin that. It can ruin the compressor, okay? So air is an enemy. When you see any percentage of air, and let's think about this. If I have a leak in my AC system, well, what took its place? Air. And that's not a good thing, right? So it's good, I know here in New York, well, in the winter, not many people come in to check their AC. But just like Mary that works for me, she has one vehicle where her AC is not working. And it was, we've been getting tons of rain around here. And it was a cool, rainy day. She had a hard time keeping her windows clear. Think about in the winter, the job of the AC system is to remove moisture out of that cabin, okay? And it will clear your windows way quicker than not having AC work. So sometimes it's a good idea to say to your customer, let's check your AC system, do a performance test. Maybe you're low, and if you catch something leaking early, it may save them money in the long run, okay? Now, when you have contaminated refrigerant, some recyclers charge a premium for handling extremely contaminated refrigerants. Sometimes you can get money back. This is an EPA hotline number. We have a recycler not far, over the bridge, over the Tappan Zee Bridge in Rockland County that does it, but there is one all over the place. AC oil removed from the air conditioning system must be saved in a separate container. Very important. Now, if you burn oil, I'm not the government. I'm just telling you what you have to do. We use Safety Clean to pick up our waste oil, but we give them the oil from the AC system separately and get a separate manifest. So if you go over to the machine here and you see the oil that is in this bottle right about here, well, when we get rid of this oil, we got a 1 gallon bucket or gallon in the back that we dried a washer fluid bottle out, And that's where we store the oil. When the oil gets close to full, the guy's taking our waste oil, we give him that bottle separately. You do not pour it in there. That is called a hot load. So you don't want to be in trouble with that. That is an EPA regulation. Real world helpless. Can you use nitrogen to check for leaks with no AC in the system or soapy water? Sure you can. But nitrogen is not that easy to get. I have a nitrogen tester, and the Robinair setup that is a mix is very difficult to get. Mine ran out. I am waiting for it for over 2 months now. And Airgas is a national company, and they said they don't make much of that. It's called the foaming gas. So it is not easy to get. It is more expensive to get. And years back, I always used nitrogen to test the system, but I didn't have a nitrogen tester. You would listen for the leak. Well, you could do that, but it's difficult to detect nitrogen, right? Better alternatives are using an AC 2791. This is a J number for a refrigerant identifier, or better yet, buy a 2913 electronic leak detector. That is mandatory with 1234YF, and that helps sniff the system. I'm not a huge fan. Remember when using them, AC, like our shop, sometimes we got to turn the AC off, air's blowing. Fans must be off because it'll be difficult to detect. Remember, refrigerant's heavier than air, so don't go up here looking for the leak. Always stay low, okay? And stay on the fittings, right? You could use AC dye. Remember, dye takes an hour to go through the system. Ultrasound, great for small leaks, and I used to use that with nitrogen. Best for small leaks, what we like to use is the Bullseye CO2, because not only do we have a detector to pick it up, but we have the foam that we spray that changes color. So soapy water is really not super useful. You can buy Detect tire stuff that is better than regular soapy bubbles, but still difficult to find a leak. And isn't it true, you know, we all buy different tools. You had that open-end wrench, but then you had to go buy a socket, right? Then you had to go buy an air gun, and then you bought an electric gun. They all could do the job, but I like doing the job easier, and I bet you do as well. Time is money. We sell our time, right? That's where we make the most money. All right, so 2791, 2913, sensitive to leaks about 0.1 ounce or 3 grams per year. That's pretty important. 1 PSI of AC pressure roughly equals 1 degree Fahrenheit. Very important. 1 degree Fahrenheit for each pound under the hood temperature. So we don't say, hey, it's 70 degrees in the shop, but when I open the hood on that Mercedes, well, hell, it may be near 200 degrees under there. Car's running, drives in, it's hot, right? We got to see what the temperature under the hood is. So you take your thermometer, or you take, like we have here, this little thing can compare outside temperature with the inside temperature, and you compare them. That's where you're going to get the real underhood temperature, right? When the AC system's at rest, low and high side should be equal if there's no blocks in the system. This is another important tip. It's another important tip. Now remember, if the system was just running, you're going to have to shut it off and wait about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the particular system. And what do I mean dependent on the particular system? Well, is it a receiver dryer or accumulator system? The accumulators take a little more time to equalize. Now, safety, safety, safety. Besides identifying, use this identifier, which, by the way, make a note, Neutronics, the company was sold. They no longer make it, the new company. They do make these identifiers. This is for refrigerant identification, okay? This is for sealant. So sealant is a biggie. I'm going to tell you what to do in a couple of minutes if you can't purchase these anymore. There are some available. You know, check with your Napa, your CarQuest, your O'Reilly's, your Advance, your Whirlpack, whoever. Check with all of them, your tool guy. They may have them, and maybe you get a bargain on it, right? Make sure to check for AC sealant in every vehicle. Wear safety goggles is the first thing. Of course, refrigerant is about a minus 15.4 for 134A and a minus 22 degrees for 1234YF. What does that mean? Well, it'd be like freezing your eyeball, and if your eyeball got hit with that, you're not going to see anymore. Some of you guys remember the old R12 days where we had to unscrew the fitting, and when some of the refrigerant came out, our fingers would get super cold and frost up. You get that in your eye, you're done. So your family wants you to come back with two eyes. I can tell you, for 10 months I couldn't see out of this eye, not because of refrigerant, but God forbid that gets in your eye and you can't see permanently. And thank God I can see out of it now, okay? Glasses do help for dyes, but there is a trick with a good black light that we'll talk about in a second. Now, there's an updated version of this UV light, but for best results, use the glasses. This is a 2791 leak detector. These are dyes that you can put in from the low side. Some are for PAG oil, some are for POE oil. And here is the tool that I love, beep, 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 beep. Tells you there's a leak somewhere up there. Once you locate it, you spray the foam, it turns from pink to yellow, and there's your leak. So bullseye is great. A good black light, if you take a bill out, I'm going to just take something out of my wallet here, and hopefully the battery's not dead in this light now. Didn't check it beforehand. Murphy's Law. Oh, it's dead. Uh-oh. Yeah, it needs to be charged up. But if you take it, you'll see it lights up, and that is telling you that light does what they call multi-spectrums. Multi-spectrums is important when you buy a light. Why? Whoa, I'll tell you why. Because you may use a dye, let's say from Napa, and they sell with a particular brand. Then next time you see Whirlpack has a deal on it, you're going to buy the dye there. Well, if it's not the company that made that black light, you may not see that dye. So very, very important to make sure that you have a light that is multispectral. Now, UView was bought out by CPS. Go on there. CPS has two versions. They have a version that you can put regular batteries, AA's in, or they have the one like this is, a rechargeable. And when I'm done with this webinar, I'm going to recharge that battery, because when we need it, won't be good. Although I think we have a spare battery around. Okay. So here, Traceline is one of the companies for R12 and 134A. Notice the J spec right here, 2791. Now, if you don't own one of these, and I'm not a huge fan, if you don't own one, you should have one, but here's something better to buy. You want the 2913. Why? This is certified for 1234YF, 134A, and when you buy this, now you're covered under both. You're working on R1234YF, you need a 2913. It is mandatory to put the fan on low, air coming out of the panels to the floor, and leave this thing there for 5 minutes. Okay, it is a DOT requirement that that flammable refrigerant, yes, you heard me, 1234YF is flammable, and there's only been a few cases of any fires, but do you want to be the person where that car goes on fire? You worked on it? You know that Murphy law firm, or Leibowitz and Leibowitz, whoever. You know, all these dudes you see on TV, they're just waiting to sue someone. And you don't want your ass sued, do you, right? So do it right, cover your butt. We still utilize this, but when you are using this machine on 1234YF, right, this or the CPS, these are the 1234 YF machines. When you're using it, it's going to go through a mandatory 10-minute vacuum hold. Then it's going to put 15% of a charge in the AC system. Oh, but you wanted to fill it up. Well, guess what? Too bad, because the machine is under a J spec that says you can only put that amount in. The low side is always higher when the system is off. That's why they want to put the least amount in there. And since it's flammable and very expensive, they don't want it leaking all over the place. So if you only put 15% in and beep, 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 it's leaking, you pull it back out right away. And it does ask you the questions, whether it's Snap-on, CPS, or any other brand. It's going to ask you, did you perform that test? Did it pass or did it fail? And you want to cover your butt. Usually when we recover all the refrigerant and put CO2 in, we do the same test with CO2. And don't forget about going up the drip tube. If there's no water leaking out of it, make sure it's pretty dry. We put the CO2 sniffer there and see if anything's leaking out. Once we're done with the CO2 that's in the system, we remove the CO2. You do not put it in your machine. Please do not recover it in your machine. You recover only refrigerant in your machine. Okay? And again, anything with an identifier built in will only allow you to pull in 1234 YF. It will not allow you to pull anything else in. Talk about testing. Well, you need to test for that sealant, because see all this junk? Stop leak, look at all this junk. And they sell this in every big box store. You can go into Walmart. You can go into Advance. You can go to CarQuest. You can go to Napa. You can go anywhere and buy this junk. This will ruin your machine, okay? And this time of year, good luck in trying to get the service guy out to work on your machine. This is June. This is prime time, right? So we got hot months coming up. July, the hottest month of the year. August. Around here lately in New York area, September is still pretty damn warm, okay? These guys are busy. And the company, you know, I know guys that ruin their expensive Snap-on machine like that, $13,000+. And when the guy gets it in the shop and they see the sealant in there, they don't warranty it for stupidity. You'll be paying for it. So please, listen to me and make sure you identify it, or you put on something I'm going to show you in a minute. This is what sealant causes. Look at this junk. Look at this junk. Ruins hoses, clogs it up. It, you know, orifice tubes. Totally messes things up. Compressors. Breaks everything down. Here's what you want to buy. Air guard. So we have one for each machine. If you don't have that sealant detector, like at first my buddy Swede, he could not find one of those, you know, sealant detectors. He ordered it like 2 years prior. Thank God he stayed on his Napa guy. They found him one. But other people may not be able to find it. So you need to buy this. Because even if it tells us it has sealant, we got to tell that customer we have to put it through here, and there's an extra charge. There's like a big stone filter in here. You can see a petcock right at the bottom. Okay, that helps some of the stuff drip out. And then if you're working on hybrid or electric compressors, they make a special AC guard to burn out any PAG oil. Because all your machines that say they do hose flush, yeah, they flush some out. But one drop of PAG oil, OE manufacturers, not me, say if you run it, every component in that AC system, compressor, condenser, receiver dryer, evaporator, okay, everything got to be replaced. You know how much money that is? You might as well junk the vehicle, right? So these are something that you should have. This should be on your machine. You can make money with it. I don't want to get into what we charge people if they need it, but hey, I didn't make it, I didn't break it, right? And I didn't put the damn dye in it. You did. The dye sealant stuff, not just dye, is what I am speaking about there. Okay, now, another thing always to check is, am I getting enough airflow out? Now, my fat ass doesn't want to get under the dash all the time and start taking out cabin air filters. Yeah, some are easy, some are a pain in the butt, right? So this little tool here, called an anemometer, this will tell you the temperature and the airspeed. The blower speed at its highest setting should measure about 13 to 16 miles an hour, or 1,000 to 1,450 RPMs. This tool is about 80 bucks. You hold this thing near the center duct or the duct to the right, and it will give you the airspeed and the temperature. Your left side duct on the driver's side will be a few degrees warmer. Now, when you do that and you see the dirty air filter versus the new air filter, now the customer knows you told them the truth. And by the way, sometimes you went through all that trouble, you pull this out, and they go, oh, I don't have the money. Next time I'll do it. I don't like working for free. I don't think you do either. Anything less than 10 miles an hour or 900 standard cubic feet should be considered severely restricted. Now, this little tool is phenomenal. You've seen in our webinars before, I've used this. You got a question about the AC compressor. Is it really working? Well, maybe it is, but watch this little video. Here's our high side, and here's our low side. First of all, we can see if oil comes in. How much? Is there a dye in the system? Take a look. Okay, so I'm going to narrate this. You're going to see the refrigerant coming in. You can see the color, the dye in it. If this had a bunch of debris in it, dirty burnt oil and stuff. Now again, you see how it's bubbling in? And there's that stone type of filter right there. Okay. Now that's coming in from the high side. When you open the low side up, you see how this is starting to boil off? You know what that's telling me? It's telling me that the high side discharge is putting refrigerant out. The low side is actually able to suck it in. That way you know if your compressor is working or not. And then you could look for oil debris, and if it's dirty and black or there's a lot of dye or a lot of oil. Remember, too much oil does not do the system any good. Too much refrigerant is not going to make it colder either. Too little is not going to make it cold. We got to be exact. Remember those 33 pennies or the weight? You want to be exact and stop adding a lot of oil and dye. Buy oil dye like we have in our machine, okay? We buy the premix oil dye. We use a POE. Never put more than 2 ounces in, okay? Very important. Now here, condenser leaks. There are different types of UV dyes. Here, we took this through the glasses. You can see there's a leak. Most of the time, they leak on the bottom left side. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Oil sits there and holds refrigerant. The left side corner, driver's side, lower corner, is the #1 area that condensers leak. The #1 spot may be fittings, okay, and caps missing. And by the way, you should always put a service cap on. Make sure you know that vacuum pump oil that you didn't use. Take some Q-tips from home, put a little oil on it, and the little seal in the cap, make sure you put a little around there, put it on. Check the fittings before you do that for leaks. We always buy new fittings, and many times customers need it, especially if the caps are missing. You go to depress it, dirt or something gets stuck. You don't even hear it or see it, but it's going to leak out, and that customer is going to be back. So take care of that. And here's what we're talking about. Look at this. I put some spit in there, and of course you're going to see dye. Why? Because dye is in the system. But this is just some spit. Spit works real well. You want to use bubbly water. You know, it sounds disgusting, spit, but saliva works real well. And look at this with the cap on. This is the CO2 in the system. No refrigerant in the system. We put 200 pounds of CO2, checking the system with the cap on, it leaked. This stuff is great. CO2 is a smaller molecule than 134A or a 1234YF. Let's go some mixed bag stuff here. Fans and electric fans. Belt-driven fans are typically mounted on a water pump and have a fan shroud, sure. But blades could be broken. Fan shrouds could be cracked. Some of that foam that makes it real good seal around the housing could be messed up. Electric fans are located either in the front or behind the radiator, usually inside the shroud, right? They may operate at 1 speed, 2 speeds, high and low, or variable speeds. These fans are driven by an electric motor that is switched on and off depending on the coolant temperature. The fan's electrical circuit is usually triggered by a signal from the coolant sensor or fan thermal switch and is powered through a fan relay. If either a belt-driven or electric fan is not operating as designed, the AC system will not function properly. Caution, many of these fans will operate with the ignition off, so watch those fingers and knuckles, right? Now the other thing here, here's a big complaint. I want you to write it down. I didn't put it in here because I want you to write some stuff, right? The handout will be available and all that. But customer complaint, when I do stop and go, my AC don't work well. I start driving down the highway, freeway, whatever you call it where you live, and guess what? It cools great. You know what may be the problem? The electric fan ain't coming on, okay? Usually on belt-driven, the fan will work, but if the belt is slipping, always make sure that the fan is working properly. And if you have shutters, active shutters, a lot of vehicles have them, okay? Are the shutters opening up? You know, maybe in the winter when it's cold out, sure, you want the shutters closed so we can get the coolant temperature up quicker, right? But you want those open, believe me, you want airflow because hot goes to cold. When you're 250 pounds or this time of year, it's 91 degrees outside right now, okay? When you want to release that heat, well, 91 outside, but what is going to be your pressure in your AC system? Probably 275, 300 or better. So that is, remember, 1 Fahrenheit per degree? Well, 91 degrees or so is a hell of a lot cooler than 2 something or 3 something. So keep that in mind as well. Now here's something from Max Mobile Air Climate. Now the AC system recovery procedure. It's always difficult to recover the refrigerant on an accumulator system, but sometimes even on a non-accumulator system. So engine preheat removal procedure, okay? The following procedure will aid in refrigerant removal when the work area is cool and recovery equipment is being used. In general, if the work area is warmer than 90 degrees, this procedure is not required. Well, again, unless the canister is frozen. So removal, compressor clutch off, very important. Turn the clutch off or remove electrical connection. Well, you just don't put the damn clutch on, okay? Set panel controls to outside air, not max, okay? So outside air means you're getting in the air from outside the vehicle. High-speed fan, airflow out of the panels. On an ATC system, automatic temperature control, set temperature to mid-range, air drawing from the vehicle cal area inlet. So that means off max. Vehicle hood open to allow engine air into the cal AC system. Operate engine at idle condition, neutral or park with the brake on. Depending on engine compartment temperature, run the engine to warm the AC system up, components up for 15 minutes. Remember, AC is off. You're using the heat of the motor to warm all those components up. Because remember the refrigerant that stayed in the condenser, a lot on the bottom, especially the left side, it's also in the accumulator, receiver dryer, compressor, in some cases, and in the evaporator. AC fan high, system on outside air, operation of electrical coolant fans to circulate air into the compartment. Do not change any control or conditions in the steps above. Start refrigerant recovery process. when recovery is complete, including the required 5-minute recheck for system pressure, system refrigerant outgassing, shut the vehicle and equipment off. So this is a phenomenal procedure that we have in the Max book. You can look online for it. If you don't have your 609 certification, well, we're going to be, if you're interested in doing an AC class here in maybe late to mid-July or early August, and another one up in Tonawanda, Buffalo area, you let us know. You could email me. You got my email address. We'll be more than glad to make sure you get your 609 certification, but that you know in a 2-day class in 16 hours, you will know a lot about AC systems. Working on cars here and up in Tonawanda, we do heavy duty, but really AC systems are the same. It's just on those big class 8s are a hell of a lot bigger, take a lot more refrigerant, right? But on either one of them, let us know. Dorman has classes. Now, AC Facts 1234YF is designed for OE air conditioned, a special condition evaporator and service replacement. The oil MD11 could be very expensive. This is oil that goes in a hybrid or electric compressor, 172 an ounce. Some are $160 for Chrysler, but they sell 3 ounces minimum. Only use an installer that has never had PAG oil in it. So see this? We have these. They get cleaned out, and the only oil you put in is the recommended oil. Do not put anything else in the system. If you're just going to add a couple of ounces with dye, you can use a POE oil, but for the compressor, you need to use the special compressor oils. Make sure to only install hybrid/electric AC oil. Expansion valves. Well, these tend to stick a lot. You remember that hydrofluoric acid? When you're low on refrigerant, it causes hydrofluoric acid. And that's going to prevent that valve from sticking. I want you to think of this as like a spray nozzle. When you take your garden hose and you pull it all the way, you get a good stream, right? Well, when the evaporator is warm, this little thermo bulb up here, the thermo bulb senses it's warm, it opens this up to allow more refrigerant through, okay? So that's how it works. If it feels it's too cold, it's going to close it. Now, if it doesn't have that, it has an orifice tube. There's all different color orifice tubes, not to make you happy. You know, yellow, Mr. Smiley Face, green, you're a tree hugger, right? You know, black or white, hey, a black and white cookie, all good, right? But guess what? They're all different orifices. They're fixed orifice. Go for extra money, and you see this one here? This has a thermo bulb built in the end, and this orifice changes, not from a fixed one like this, but it changes from smaller to bigger. You will get better cooling. This is now on newer vehicles, and they've been installing them for quite a few years. So many of these, we don't use them anymore. You know, I have them upstairs, but you're way better off putting the right one in. And by the way, if it has 2 O-rings versus 1 O-ring, that is also different. And lubricate the O-rings with what? Oh, that leftover vacuum oil. You don't want to use PAG oil. PAG is an alkaline. It can burn your finger, and if you rub your eye, it's going to burn. Not good, right? All right, drip tubes. See how dry this one is? Well, hey, spiders, hornets, and wasps love going up there. When you know a vehicle is running right, you should see water dripping out of this. If there's not a lot dripping out of this, you may want to put your leak detector right near here, or if it's this dry, you can go up the tube. You may have a leak, okay? Not good. And let's not forget the cabin air. As we said before, if either one of these are not working right, we're not dripping water out, or we have a dirty filter, not enough airflow, consumer is not going to feel too cold. Now here's a condenser, brand new. Here is where the receiver dryer is built in. Right under here, there's a little plug you take out. After all the refrigerant is removed, you take that out and you can put a new receiver dryer in. Now, how about these caps? Do not remove caps until you remove the old component. and let's say you're going to lunch, right? It's our lunchtime here. We're going to put either those caps that we saved from one of them, or we're going to take Gorilla duct tape and seal everything up. Why? We don't want moisture getting in the system, okay? Because the moisture causes hydrofluoric acid. We don't want anything to get ruined in the system. If you have a compressor that failed, well, why did it fail? Most likely you got debris in there. This thing from Aircep is phenomenal. It is a little screen that you can put in the compressor. It will catch the debris. Now, if the system had a lot of junk in it, you may have to tell the customer, look, Mrs. Customer, Mr. Customer, you're going to have to come back. I'm going to have to recover the refrigerant. I'm going to have to take that screen out. I'm going to have to evacuate it, put a new screen in and evacuate it. Sometimes you clean them out with brake clean. Or just buy a new one. They're pretty cheap. The brake clean probably costs you more money, right? So put it in, but let them know there's got to be a charge. Now, this is a great part. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to show you this on the video. I'm not going to play the sound. I'm going to talk through it. Yeah, Dorman, but guess what? This is a part we use here in the shop, and as he's going through on this compressor, this piece is located right here. Toyota or other companies want to sell you a whole compressor. Well, you don't need that. You take that snap ring out. Here's the component we're going to put in, and you put this piece in right up top. You don't have to take any refrigerant out. Just remove that, and guess what? You're ready to rock and roll. The compressor will now work, and it works phenomenal. We've used it. We don't, Dorman hates when I do any commercials like this. But hey, I'm in my shop. We use this stuff here. And believe me, you'll be real happy if you did buy it, okay? Pressure switches. Well, we used to do this a lot, right? A lot of cotta pins. Remember those days, guys? We used to jump it or jumper wires. Well, switches, what are the jobs of switches? Well, pressure cycling switches turn the compressor on and off. They protect the system by shutting off the compressor if the system is too low or if pressures are too high. Too low would be a low pressure switch. Too high would be a high pressure switch. They also used to supply an input to the computer to aid in engine performance. The compressor may be disengaged during a wide open throttle to improve acceleration. Do not jump any connector without consulting a wiring diagram. Why? Because everything is made from a computer. And if you do something wrong, guess what's going to happen? You got it. You're going to have a problem, burn something up, and you're not going to be happy. So make sure you don't jump anything without consulting a wiring diagram. Oil. Compressors can come dry. They can come wet. They can come short of oil or too much oil. Have a clean type beaker cup. We buy the plastic ones because when we had the glass ones, crack and glass all over the place. Plastic ones, you got to buy new ones once a year, but big deal. You can drain it out, see how many ounces are in it. You can use a squeeze bottle to put the right oil. Do not use a universal PEG. Do not use a universal ester oil. Use the oil that they call for, especially in a compressor. When it comes to adding a couple of ounces of oil/dye, that's when you can use a universal POE or a hybrid POE oil, okay? So make sure you read that. Now, you replace parts. In fact, I caught one of my guys doing this. He put a new condenser in, and I said, hey, I don't want to mention the name. Did you put oil in? He goes, no, I'm going to put it in through the machine. I go, dude, let's think about this. You put oil in through the machine. What does it have, a little brain in the oil? He goes, I'm going to the condenser. I don't think so, right? So I said, well, take that thing, open it up, and we have these little squeeze bottles. I don't know if I see one around, but the little squeeze bottle, you can put oil in there or a turkey baster. We have both. You put the measured amount of oil in there, you squeeze it in the opening, you let it go through, and now it's in the condenser. It's in the receiver dryer. And then he goes, well, how do I know how much you put it in? I said, well, RTFI. You see the computer in your bay right there, or the tablet? All the info's right there. You just got to look it up. And he looked it up and goes, you know, I didn't realize that. Well, thank God he hadn't done many AC jobs, because that's how people's AC systems get ruined, okay? So put the right amount in there. Avoid slugging the compressor on initial startup. Now, sometimes this happens, especially if you charge from the high side. Set the cabin ventilation to center duct position and open the ducts completely. Adjust the blower speed to mid-level and AC to max cool performance. Start the engine without running the AC system and let the engine idle uninterrupted 2 to 3 minutes. Turn the AC system for approximately 10 seconds at idle and immediately turn the air conditioner off again for 10 seconds. Repeat this 5 to 10 times. Perform a final operation of the air conditioning system as specified by the manufacturer. So you know what this is like? I just got my vet out after a year of sitting, okay? Because I couldn't see, like I told you, I had a left eye. Pretty dangerous driving, so I wasn't driving. At any rate, when I go to start it up, because I've been sitting there, and it's a supercharged version, I want to get the oil going through. Same with turbos, okay? I have a CTSV turbo, and when I shut it down, I let it idle for a bit. When I change oil in it, I'm going to crank it over, hit the start button, shut it down. Start it up, shut it down until the gauge pressure comes up. Basically, you're doing the same thing here. You only want a gas to be sucked in on the suction side, low side of the compressor, and a discharge of high pressure gas on the high side. Otherwise, you can slug a compressor. The little valves in there or the swirl will have a problem. What kinds of oil? Well, the old R12 was mineral. Now here's what we use, a universal PAG with dye. You see that word? With dye. And here's the hybrid FJC with dye. You can use your particular brand. It does not go in the compressor. I want to stress that again. It's not made for the compressor. Buy the right oil for the compressor. And here's a universal ester oil. It's approved for all makes. It can contain dye, but you don't want to use that in the compressor. Now, you may say, the compressor may say use PAG 46 synthetic, 100, 150. PAGs come in different weights. Use the right one, just like your motor. Quick temperature checks. What type of system is this? Well, an expansion valve. But remember, our hands can test stuff. If your hand's at A, the expansion valve inlet should be warm. Why? Because you got hot, high pressure liquid going there. Now it's going down to a low pressure liquid. It starts getting cold. B, the suction side should be cooled to the touch. Some sweating is normal. If it's freezing, you got a restriction somewhere. C, at the compressor, you shouldn't feel any big vibrations. D, the compressor outlet should be pretty hot. Be careful, don't burn your hands. E, if you have a temperature type of gun, like a Raytec gun or a pyrometer, touch pyrometer, you should be about 40, 50 degrees difference between side to side. Too little temperature change, you may have an airflow restriction. F, if you have the receiver dryer, this should be warm and frost free. If you see this freezing up, and by the way, sight glass, there's a glass on it, they're usually painted. You do not look for bubbles. Bubbles were only utilized in R12. Do not look for bubbles, okay? Only in R12. The dryer inlet should be warm to the touch. And if this was an accumulator system, the accumulator would be located here. That can should be cooled to the touch. You wouldn't have an expansion valve. You would have an orifice tube, which should be warm going to cold. Now, quick performance test, because we're almost at the end, and I don't want to interrupt more of your lunch. You set it to max AC, open the doors. This is the best way to test the AC system. Make sure you have all the doors open, AC set to max position, and blow a fan on max. This is going to make the system work really hard, okay? Duct temperature should be 30 degrees colder. So when you're in the middle duct or the duct all the way to the right of the car, outside the vehicle, if it's 90 and you got 60, you got one damn good system. When I'm out in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's 110, hey, you get 30 degrees difference. If you got 70 or so coming out of the duct, our body temperature is 98.6. So anything under that is going to feel cool, right? Now, some vehicles are going to get cooler, and have you noticed they don't have on the temperature anymore? You know, used to have 40, 50, 60. Now, after 50-ish, it kind of says cooler. It doesn't go down any lower, okay? The difference, less than 20 degrees here. Look for a restriction in the condenser. Difference more than 60, plug condenser. Great idea to use the thermal imager that we spoke about in some of our other lunch and learns. An approximate 40 to 50 degree drop across the condenser is probably normal. Test several points to make sure it's uniform. Check a few good vehicles for a good baseline, okay? Now, both sides are low. If you hook your gauges up, both are low, you probably low charge or a restriction in the system, right? If both sides are high, you may have an overcharge. Now, we have a shop down the road. They're always putting too much oil, too much refrigerant. They use a heater blanket. Their scale must be way the hell off, because I know that putting the right numbers in, we did call them and say, hey guys, come on, you know, you're overcharging these things. So oil charge, poor flow through the condenser, expansion valve stuck open, or the thermal sensing bulb mounted incorrectly. Both sides the same. There's the compressor not working, and this is a big one that I told Mary on her GM car. Her compressor's not working right. So I said, did you check the control valve? Did you go in your scan tool and do bidirectional control? And I said, Mary, you know what the easiest thing to do? Remember that sight glass I just showed you? All I need to do is hook that up to one of these machines, put it in a vacuum, hook it to the low and high side on the car. Don't need the machine to do that. But I do need to put it in a vacuum so I don't introduce any air in it. And then what I need to do is open the high side up, see what type of refrigerant, oil, and dye comes in, and then open the low to see if it can boil it and pull it out. If the compressor is not working, that ain't gonna happen, and then you can narrow it down to that control valve or the compressor. That's an easy thing to do. Here's some good things on expansion devices. If you're in range, well, of course, everything's working good. You're low and low, add refrigerant. You're low on the low side, high on the high side, possible blockage of the expansion valve or orifice tube. And if the system was at rest, you would not have equal pressures on both gauges. Remember? 1 Fahrenheit, so if it's 95 degrees under the hood of the car, low side, high side, vehicle been sitting 15, 20 minutes, both better be 95. If one side is different, lower, and the other's higher, you got a expansion valve or clog in a condenser, receiver dryer, evaporator, whatever. If the low side is high and the high side is low, possible faulty compressor. If both sides are high, system's overcharged, recover refrigerant. Now, steps taken, verify the concern. Number one, when people say the AC ain't working, is air coming out of the duct? Where does air default? Where does air default? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Where does air default? I'm still waiting, come on. That's right, the windshield. It goes to the windshield. That is very important. Thank you, Mark. That was good. Check for DTCs, because the DTC can shut the system down. Check for TSBs, technical service bulletins. And here, when you use your scan tool, notice the air conditioning system that wasn't working. It says recirculation flap, no signal. No signal, hey, that's why maybe the system ain't working. So you need to investigate, right? AC system essentials, 1234YF is similar to 134A, normal readings dependent on the temperature. And here, look, these are pretty damn good readings, 41, okay, and roughly 325. The day was a 100-degree day, okay, not here, but my buddy took this in Florida, Pete Meyer, and well, it's going to be roughly 42 degrees inside that car, okay? So that was great. I told him to give me a shot because his garage, when he doesn't turn his air conditioner on, is brutal. It's like a big oven. So I said, Pete, get me a screenshot of that. You know, here we've been getting hot days. I could have done it here, but we let him do a little work, right? Low side, good ranges, 25 to 45. High side, 153 something. As long as you don't go over 350, the high pressure shut-off switch will shut it off. Compressor off, system at rest, at least 15 minutes. Gauge should be close to ambient temperature under the hood. Here's 1234 YF leak check. This here is a 2913 unit. It has up for 1234 YF and lower readings for R134A. You're going to put it on the highest sensitivity, and you're going to stick that down where the floor ducts are out for at least 5 minutes. Very important, since there's a safety and legal issue associated with it. And here, look what they tell you. Snap-on has the same thing. AC system blower, low position. Switch AC to off. Air distribution set to floor position. Insert the 2913 leak detector, maximum sensitivity into the center floor duct outlet. Was this performed? You see where it says that? And then you're signing off on it. Here was a car came in that Pete and I did in this bay. We had it out in the sun, brand new. I think it had 20 some odd miles on it. We pull it in. We did every test first on the car. We followed all the manufacturer's suggestions, and it told us the system was working good. It was cold, but it wasn't super cold. So here we're using something called Mantooth. Mantooth has an empathy chart, and this is the empathy chart. Now, see the low pressure, the high pressure, and you've seen the video if you watched last month. We showed you that. If not, please go back to May and look at it. But the superheat and the subcooling, here the superheat is not good. You see this little box here? I put the red circle around it, but you see how this box is out of this big U? And basically these empathy charts are used for big commercial systems. Or you're working on a unit that does not tell you how much refrigerant goes into it. How about if I have a huge building? I don't know how much goes into it. You know, it's like when the dudes put the AC system in here, well, these ceilings are 20 some odd feet high. You know, how much space does that 8 ton or 16 tons I think we got outside or more, okay? Units, how much refrigerant does it take? I don't know, I don't do commercial air conditioning, right? But I can tell you, now with this tool, I can do any air condition and figure out if it's good or bad. Now with this empathy chart, it tells me I am not in range. And this tells you right away you should be in the green here. So we got a 31 degree difference from in to out, which is pretty damn good. We used the snap-on temperature gauge. I keep forgetting to look for this thing. Okay, pretty neat setup, all digital. Okay, center duct and outside near the condenser. Now, when we put the right amount, 550 grams, okay, look at the empathy chart. You notice where this box is, got to be a little over here and a little over there, and look what we have in supercoolant. Superheat and supercoolant are in the green, and this thing now was working really well. Look at the duct temperature now. Here's the range we want to be. Remember that 30 to 40 something, the temperature we were at? We're looking good here. We had now a 36 degree difference rather than 31. 5 degrees colder, okay, 5 degrees colder than what the manufacturer had put in there. And here's something I told you last month, and I like to say this. Every new vehicle I've tested has been down at least 2 ounces. They may be cool enough for some people, and 1234 YF works pretty efficient, but think about the price of it and 2 ounces off every car, and let's say they build 100,000 cars. It's It's a hell of a lot of money, right? So check the vehicle out carefully. Make sure everything, here's what the tool looks like. These are the pressure transducers, 1234YF and 134A. These are the thermocouplers. You charge these up. You can put it on there. And I guess you can put it on R12 as well. The ends fit everything. I have never used it on R12. Now, we're a little over, sorry about that. I want to remind you here at Dorman off his free Lunch and Learns. Swede has his Lunch and Learn coming up. We got paid for webinars, okay? Subscription plans, so go to dormantrainingcenter.com. Seminars, hands-on training. We got electrical courses. We got a meter course, an electric 12-hour course, a 24-hour course, air conditioning hands-on courses, lab scope course, Autel course, e-scan. We got a bunch of stuff. Look at the Dorman Training Center, and if you want in-shop training, we do that. We come out to your shop and provide training. Now, think about that sometimes, like a gentleman who hired me out in Indiana, had me come out there because it was cheaper for him to have me come out there, pay all my expenses, and get all his guys on a Saturday and Sunday, teach them 2 days, then flying everyone out here. Prior, he was flying some people out here. But there's the expense of flying a person out, getting them back, and he did a great thing. He shut this shop. The shop was closed on Saturday and Sunday, no disturbances from customers, and he met the criteria. He had tables, he had chairs, clean environment, and all the tools that they needed to work on the particular stuff I was teaching. So go visit us at dormantrainingcenter.com. If you have any questions, I'll be here to answer them. If not, you could basically see us next month in July. Coming up, a happy, healthy, safe 4th of July coming up, and we will see you probably in the middle of the month or something with another Dorman Lunch and Learn. Thank you for your time. I'm G Truglia from New York, and remember, you could always email me. I'll be more than glad to answer your questions. Have a great day.